leading the charge to make the 2024 Broker Carrier Summit possible, and we are so excited to have their support. In case you haven't heard, TAFS offers much more than freight factoring. It provides a comprehensive support system for trucking companies of all sizes, specializing in fast and efficient invoice factoring with the ability to pay carriers in as little as 1 hour. And TAFS services go well beyond factoring, offering a fuel card that unlocks major fuel discounts, flexible business loans that are designed to cater to the distinct needs of a carrier's operations, a dedicated, responsive client experience team, and much more. Black Box Logistics is a 3PL freight brokerage based out of Birmingham, Alabama. Black Box Logistics was formed in 2020 by 3 friends, Logan Dyer, William Graves, and Will Hopkins, in a basement office with the goal of bringing transparency around the clock communication and hassle-free customer experience to the table. LoadBase is a logistics software solution that simplifies the process of tracking carriers. Multi-service fuel card, the industry's first fuel card, was created by an over-the-road truck driver in 1978 to offer a safe, simple, and cost-effective way to handle fuel and trucking expenses. Initially, it addressed safety concerns of carrying cash on the road. Today, it combats advanced fraud with best-in-class technical and personal support. Sales-CRM is built for freight broker and agent sales teams. Manage your shipper prospecting and follow-ups. Organize your carriers in the lanes they run. HD Ships is a leading logistics provider specializing in sustainable and tech-driven freight solutions. With hubs in Reno, Phoenix, and London, we deliver comprehensive services, including full truckload, expedited cross-border, and intermodal freight. Leveraging proprietary technology, we offer 24/7 tracking, real-time visibility, and advanced automation to ensure safe, compliant, and efficient transportation. Our commitment to sustainability enables clients to offset emissions through carbon credits, aligning logistics with environmental goals. At HD Ships, we prioritize transparency, reliability, and exceptional customer service, empowering clients to achieve seamless, sustainable logistics solutions worldwide.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. How's your week been?
Been good, man. Flying by. It's hard to believe we're almost at Valentine's Day. It's it's going well, man. How about you? How's things in Birmingham? Still getting snow?
No, what did you say? Still getting snow?
Yeah.
No, man. It's up to about 70 degrees. We're pushing 80 this weekend, so it's we're getting back to what we're comfortable with. But yeah, no, been busy up here as well, or rather down here. What about Minnesota? What's the temperature like up there right now?
It's not bad. Probably 20s, 30s. We're supposed to get a snowstorm starting tonight. So
Sounds bad.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, shout out to Multi-Service Fuel Card. Been around since 1978. We actually just renewed their sponsorship for 6 months. They have some new products launching soon, so be on the lookout for that. Yeah, it works for brokerages too if you're looking to offer a fuel card. Black Box Logistics, where Will works. HT Ships, where I recruit agents for. Loadbase. You want to talk about Loadbase since you just demoed their product?
Yeah, Loadbase is a tracking platform. I did a demo. The cool thing about Loadbase, it's real-time tracking. So a lot of other products will say ping every 10, 15 minutes. Loadbase is an actual real time, so you can see where they are. You don't have to wait for it to click. Very clean interface. It's a great product. Stan and them are working on some integration. So if anybody's in the market for tracking or just looking to explore alternatives, I'd definitely hit up Stan. They've got a great product.
Yeah, 100%. Sales Dash, the OG sponsor from day one. Freight specific CRM. Yeah, Josh is great. Will uses them. Yeah, great product, great person. Our shout out to Trio. They do all of our back end, all of our posting, reaching out to guests for bios, photos. Do a lot of our social media on our Two Dogs page. And then our banner sponsor Taft's, top 10 factoring company, Kansas City based. Great rates. They sponsored the last Broker Carrier Summit, and yeah, can't say enough good things about Taft's. Reach out to Ryan or Rob.
Yeah, awesome. Great group of sponsors. Well, man, I'm excited about the guest we have this week.
Yeah, me too. I've admired him for a while on LinkedIn. I think he's a great leader, runs a great organization, and just a humble, positive guy. And built a successful company. And I think it'll be fun kind of learning his backstory and what he has going on. And it'll be fun.
Yeah, so for those of you tuned in and maybe you're not familiar with Steve's the founder and CEO of the AGL Group. And a cool thing that they do that I wasn't aware of is they donate $1 per load that they move, which is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, fair amount of money with. I mean, they have 100 people, around 100 people. I think he'll tell us the exact amount, but definitely adds up when you're moving them out of freight they are. So,
100%. Well, we'll go ahead and bring Steve onto the stage. Steve, how are you?
Good. How's it going, guys? I appreciate you having me on here today.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We're excited to have you. Well, I guess kind of diving into it, for anyone who doesn't know you, want to just give the viewers maybe kind of a little bit of background of where you were, what happened, and kind of what you're doing now.
Yeah, totally. And I do want to say AGL Cares. That's something that's near and dear to our hearts. We really love that program, donating $1 for every load we do. So we'll hit on that in a little bit. But yeah, Steve Zambo, co-founder of AGL, founded the organization back in 2013. Prior to that, I grew up in a freight family. Like many in logistics, I tried like hell to get out and somehow just kept getting sucked back, right? So originally from Boston, live down in Florida now. I've made my way through New York City, Los Angeles, tried a couple different industries, and then started AGL, like I said, about a little over a decade ago. So it feels like it's still a startup, right? Even though it's 10 years in. I feel like we're still just getting going.
It's hard to believe 2013 was so long ago. I mean, I graduated high school in 2012, and it's hard to believe that 13 years ago. So,
yeah, it's wild. It's absolutely wild, 100%.
It's funny. So you grew up in a freight family. It sounds like as you said, you tried like hell to get out of it, and then you found your way back in. So coming back, and then what kind of led to you deciding to go into this venture of founding it and starting your own company? Did you just kind of like always have a vision for wanting to work for yourself, or what kind of led to that?
Yeah, so I think it's important to understand kind of the family history. That'll give you a better idea why I tried to get out. So my parents started the first international freight forwarder that was specific to lumber and logs in 1982. So I think 2013 was a long time ago. 84 is a little bit longer, right?
Yeah.
So in that business until 2005, and they ended up selling their business to Cuninado. So anybody in the international space knows Cuninado. I mean, they're the largest agency in the world. And so dining room conversations for me as a kid growing up, because I was born in 88, 36. Conversations weren't, how's school today? What'd you learn? It was about their drayage providers, ARAP, client related issues. So it's a little bit of a different upbringing. And so watching their daily interactions at the dinner table, it looked like it was a brutal industry to be a part of. In the summers, I'd go and work for them. When I was 12, I started filing customs for them. I don't know if that's legal, so please don't report me. And so I got to see all that firsthand. And then when they sold to Kuehne+Nagel, it went from being a 20-person, $25 million revenue shop to, part of this multi-billionaire behemoth with, 50, 60,000 employees and red tape and restrictions out the wazoo. So it was like, you couldn't get further apart on the spectrum. Yeah. And so they sold in 2005. I want to say 2006 is when I graduated high school. So I was too young to even potentially take over, the business at that point. As a 17-year-old, that'd be crazy. Yeah. And then basically got out of the University of Rhode Island, attended URI. So I'm a roadie Ram. And after school, just kind of floated around, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I worked in New York City. I worked for a Mediterranean shipping company. I was in their VIP department, so I handled BDP International and Mercedes-Benz. I tried my hand in some production, so we did advertising production. So I was on set at some Verizon shoots in New Jersey overnight. Absolutely hated that. Then I went and worked for a telecom company before I actually met my now wife. We were at Ultra Music Festival in Miami, which I don't know if you
heard of that.
Yeah. We met each other there. I was living in Boston. She was living in Chicago. And we were doing the long distance thing. And she always wanted to move to LA. I was at that telecom company I didn't care for. And so one Saturday I applied for an IT recruiting company, Boston based, but then, they wanted to start an LA branch. And I was like, well, I live in Boston. Maybe, let's see if that works. And I ended up getting the role. So I worked for them for about 3 months in Boston and then moved to LA. So I called her. I said, hey, look, I got a job in LA. We've been doing this long distance thing. Either we do this or, I'm done because I'm not going to keep doing long distance. We're 6 months in. She goes, sounds good. I was like, great. I'll pick you up in 3 weeks. And so we moved to LA. For a year, I worked for Avid Technical Resources. I did full sales cycle for recruiting. So I was getting my foot in the door, getting onboarded documentation wise, Matt, like what you're doing now with a recruiting standpoint, running every single phone screen, finding candidates through all the different platforms. We had Bullhorn as an applicant tracking system. I don't know what you guys use over there, if at all. And then I'd have to go and fulfill those jobs. So I got Disney, Paramount, DirecTV, AT&T, a bunch of really big organizations signed up within a year. And my parents had come to visit me and they said, hey, I know you wanted to start this business 2 years ago. We have a couple of clients that want to get going. So if you want to do this, you're working 16 hours a day for somebody else, then now's the time. I was like, all right, sounds good. I'll see you guys in 2 months. So my now wife, girlfriend at the time, could have been more pissed at me because I took her out of where she wanted to be for many years. And it was me, dad, mom, and my wife in a dentist's office for the first 2 years, all four of us. So it was tough.
You got her into freight too. Did she have any background in logistics, or you just said, hey, we're going to Boston, got to introduce you to the freight industry too?
She had no background whatsoever. She was working in the commercial real estate world as an admin. And so it took me 2 months to convince her to move. And I was like, look, either this is going to be really great and we're going to have a really good opportunity here, and I'm already putting in the hours elsewhere, so I know I'm going to work for it, or we're going to be in the same position we're in now. And if we really want to move back, we can. So I didn't really view it as having any downside. So yeah, it was a challenge having her work with my mom and my dad every day. And then because we had just moved back, we were living with them too. So for the first few months, yeah, exactly. I saw your reaction. The first few months was it was tough.
Yeah.
What was the biggest challenge kind of in those early days, 2013, 2014 from the dentist office? I mean, everyone wants to have an entrepreneur dream, but I mean, you don't hear much sometimes about the struggles that first year or two. What are a couple of the biggest, struggles or things you remember from that, time period? Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing sexy about starting a business, period, in my eyes, because, in a lot of businesses, people come into a role. They have predefined roles and responsibilities. I'm responsible for this segment. I'm responsible for these key KPIs. Great. But when you're starting something, you're responsible for everything. So, when I say everything, I mean, like our lease, if something happened to the toilet, I need to go find a plumber while I'm also quoting out freight, while I'm also trying to do something on the back end and get an invoice out. So it doesn't matter what you need to do. It just needs to get done somehow, some way. So those early days, honestly, the first 4 or 5 years, I pretty much would wake up, go to work, be in the office by 7:38, and I'd leave at 8 or 9. It was 12, 13-hour days every day. Mind you, I have a child now. I can't do that, but that's what it was. So largest challenge was, it's just that you don't have the ability to turn off at that stage of the company. You can't just go out of office or take a vacation. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very, very true. I like the part about you're talking about the plumber or dentist too. A lot of people don't ever mention that, but you really are responsible for, everything. How did you kind of go about hiring and, bring on your first people? Obviously, you eventually want to step away from doing 14-hour, 15-hour days and have the right people in place. How did you go about kind of building those first early hires?
Yeah, our recruitment and hiring and retention strategy today is a million times different than it was at the beginning. At the beginning, it was, quite honestly, it was one of those, I don't know what I don't know. I know how to put together roles and responsibilities because I have the recruiting background. I know how to personally go out and try to recruit individuals because I had that background. But we were, I would say, passively recruiting just through Monster and Indeed and things like that nature. There wasn't really active recruiting going on because I quite frankly didn't have much time. So really my goal at the beginning was to find individuals who have a good work ethic and a good aptitude and they want to learn. And from there, if we can check those boxes, we'll be in a pretty good spot. Boston also is not really a freight hub by any means. So finding people with logistics experience there is really, really challenging. You're up against the likes of biotech and tech companies, the Harvards, the education sectors of the world. So there's a lot of other industries, quite honestly, that pay better than freight that are a lot less demanding.
So most of your hires didn't have logistics background.
Our first hire with a logistics background was probably my 16th hire, 17th hire.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If that, yeah, it was not early by any means.
And it's a lot harder too. I mean, I briefly tried it on the shipper side, doing a lot of international work and, with the paperwork and all that. It was way over my head compared to being on the, truckload domestic side. So imagine the amount of teaching necessary is a lot different than, teaching a domestic 3PL. The amount of knowledge, regulations and, things that go into it is a lot more, at least to me, is way more complicated.
Yeah, I think that's true to a degree. The only difference, the way I view it, is the domestic space versus the international space. We have a rule of 2 on our international side where you have to pick up the phone in 2 rings and you have to respond to an email in 2 hours. Well, in the domestic world, 2 hours is 6 months. That does not work. And so we had to kind of retrain once we opened up our domestic brokerage the way we think about response time in businesses. So when you're training somebody, you get to train over a shipment life cycle that takes 50 days. But when you're training somebody on a domestic shipment, you could get a call at 8 a.m. today saying you got a hot load that needs to get out at 11 and you need to go scramble to find a truck. And God forbid you don't source the right carrier, So it's just a lot different in terms of training and how methodical you can be.
When did you guys open up the domestic side?
It will be, I want to say we're just over the 4 or 5 year mark at this point. And so when that last trade war started is when, I was like, that's enough's enough, because we were so heavily concentrated in the forest products segment that, almost overnight shipments stopped between COVID and the trade war. It was just it's one after the other. And so I figured we have a bunch of export clients, international clients. We open up a domestic brokerage. It should be as easy as saying, hey, we got this domestic brokerage. Now let us carry your domestic freight. We already do a great job on this side. Come to find out, lumber flatbeds, when you have guys that run local hauls for you and you have, back hauls left and right already, those rates are so hard to get in between. And it's really hard to sell into that market for the shorter hauls. So our domestic brokerage does almost no lumber. Yeah.
Right.
It's interesting you say that because I think lumber has a much different mentality in the international space than it does in the domestic space.
100%. Yeah, 100%. So
Are you guys kind of doing everything then? Reefer, flatbed, dry van. You guys kind of doing it all on the domestic side?
Yeah, we are. So we do like in terms of lumber, we do a ton of pallets still. We do a lot of food and beverage at this point, a lot of metal. Kind of ended up in, I would say some of the heavier hauling items, for lack of better words. We play a lot in like the plastics and the recycling space. So a lot that matches up pretty well with our international network already. But we're definitely involved in some like, the least sexiest of industries. For sure.
I guess, and when growing out the, domestic side, I mean, is your kind of long-term plan to focus more on that or the international side? Or do you think it's easier to grow having grown both? Is it harder to grow the international side or harder to grow, the domestic side, would you say?
I think they both, both international and domestic have their innate challenges that come along with it from a scaling perspective. International, you're negotiating with 12 to 14 steamship lines. There's only X amount of slots per vessel, and they only want so much of certain types of cargo. So you have to be a little bit more, I don't want to say strategic, because you have to be strategic on both sides from a scaling perspective, but you have to be a little more clear about what you're going to be going after and where you want your volumes to come from. Whereas, on the domestic side, if you're partnering with certain carriers, unless it's something specialized like reefer, they don't really care as long as you're not doing anything crazy. It's more about a volume game. So it's a little bit different in that regard. We didn't have an international sales team up until about October of 24.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was basically, it's been myself and our VP, Jeff Doherty, who have been going to conferences, just calling, and a lot of it's been word of mouth and referral, which has been great. And in the domestic space at the beginning, we didn't really have a big sales team, and that's something that we've put a lot of emphasis on. So over the last 4 months, I think we brought in nine sales reps for that group, budgeted to add another 12 throughout the course of the year. So we're really pouring gas on the fire there. And then same thing on the international side, because we had no, sales team. We brought that individual in October, and we're trying to grow that to a team of 5 this year.
Very cool. How is your domestic brokerage set up? It sounds like you have it's not cradle to grave, or what's the structure look like?
Yeah, no, it's not cradle to grave. So, we do have our sales reps, we have account managers, and then we have our CSR team. And so our CSR team is doing both, carrier sourcing, actually booking loads, setting appointments. They're also going to be doing track and trace for the group. Of course, we use technology and tools like everybody else on the track and trace side. Same thing with carrier sourcing. Account manager is exactly what you kind of expect them to be, the accounts that it's rinse and repeat, for lack of better words. And then obviously, our sales reps, they're going out, dialing LinkedIn, texts, whatever it is, trying to bring in, new opportunities within our ICP, which is our ideal client profile. Mm-hmm. And then, and so if it's a hot load, they'll get involved, they'll book it. But for the most part, we try to have the CSRs and AMs handle that.
Nice.
So, yeah.
I don't want to backtrack too much, but I want to go back to when you were starting the company and you're working at the dentist office with your wife and parents. You're also living together. So that was our experience at Black Box. So when I started with my 2 partners, we were living together. So kind of what you're describing, right? It's like 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. and you can't really take off because there's just too much at stake, and really the revenue is probably not there. You just have to do it. You have to do it all. But also just being around people I don't know what your experience with it is, but if you got like the work stress, you're starting this company, you're probably moving really fast, you spread very thin, and then you're going home to the same exact people. So you can't separate. At a startup, it's not the work-life balance. You can't cut it off and go home. And then furthermore, if you're starting it with people that you live with, it's just 24/7. You're talking about 4 years. That's a big commitment. And just enduring that and then building it, it's got to be cool to be, 10 plus years with all these employees now and look back from where you started to where you are. And then even further, where you guys are going.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I can't tell you the amount of times I ate out during that stretch when I was living with my parents just to get out of the house. You know what I mean? Like my wife would be like, "Hey, can we please go eat somewhere else?" I'm like, I'll eat anywhere that isn't here right now. Let's go." So, yeah, no, I agree, and it definitely is pretty cool to look back at it. And I was just talking to my VP today because we were looking at year-over-year January numbers, and we've been putting a lot of emphasis on the growth of that domestic team, and the numbers, they're really, they're a hell of a lot better than they were even just last year. And so you look back 5 years ago, and it's really cool to be able to look at that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So is everybody still involved as far as your wife and family? Are they still involved with the company? Are they separated, or was that
my mom moved out of the business. She was only in for a few years, and then dad moved out. We moved, we opened a Florida office, Jacksonville, Florida. And so I live 20 minutes south of Ponte Vedra now. I moved down here 4 years ago. We opened that office 7 years ago. And that was the beginning of, phasing dad out of the business. And a year into that, he pretty much just totally stepped aside. So he hasn't had a laptop or even an email address at the company in 6 years. So, yeah. And then my wife, when she was pregnant with my daughter, we said, hey, she was our documentation manager. And so it was the perfect opportunity to move her out of the business at that time. And so that was about 4 years ago.
Did she miss it?
What'd you say?
Did she miss it?
No, not at all. No, she loves that she's not involved. So we moved her out about 4 years ago, and that's been it's been really good because, we are a family-owned business and we have, family values, but at the end of the day, I'm the only Zambo that's involved in the business. And so it's run more like a traditional business than it is a family business in that regard, which I think is really good because it gives our team members upward mobility, the ability to grow, the ability for the company to grow. And they're not wondering if, somebody's brother or sister or whatever is going to be getting a free pass / handout.
I'll say so for us, we've kind of dabbled with family at Black Box through myself and other partners. And it's just one of those, it's kind of tricky. It's like idealistically, it's like, great, man, I want to build with, my people, the people I love, but at the same time, I come into the office now, I'm compromised because, I've got my dad over here working, and then somebody, it's just, it can get messy. So it's really cool to see that it worked out, successfully for you guys, and they were able to phase out. And then I bet it's nice too, if you're at Thanksgiving or something, you can talk about work and they'll know what you're talking about. Somebody with a significant other who's not in freight, they're just like, what the hell do you mean? Or like, what are you talking about? So no, very cool, man. And I respect it very much, you guys' journey.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. You hit the nail on the head too. Like my wife knows a lot of our clients. So I'm like, I'm going out with, Joe from XYZ company. She's like, tell Joe I said hi. And it's not like, who the hell is Joe? What are you doing? It's tell him I said, what's up? I'll talk to you tomorrow. And so it becomes a lot easier in that regard. And then, we kind of have a rule. It's like no business talk during Christmas or Thanksgiving. So if you want an update, I'll give you one, but let's not do it during the holidays.
Yeah.
So
it's a good rule. Well, I know we're talking so much about people. I have to ask you this because, if you look at a lot of your employees, they've been there for a long time. You have a very interesting stance, one that I really like. I think you're one of probably the largest brokerage I know from employee count that has no non-compete or non-solicit. What kind of went into that decision? I think most brokerage owners, and I understand this even as someone who doesn't like non-solicits, but kind of need that to protect your business. I totally understand those, but I'm just kind of curious what went into that thought process, because that's as a business owner, having this business for 10 years, a lot of business owners would say that's too much of a risk. So I just kind of wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so we never had one. We didn't have one when we started, because obviously we had next to no employees. And then as we started the group, we did adopt one probably like year 3 or 4. And we had that for a couple of years. And then eventually I just said, that's it, like enough is enough. The non-compete, I think it's a little bit ridiculous, period. So I'll put that there. The non-solicit, I understand, is where a lot of companies feel like they're protecting their best interests. The way I view it is, if you treat your employees the way that they should be treated, there isn't a reason for them to go and try to, leave the organization and go to a different one to go after that business. And if they do want to go and start their own thing, which I know some people are, they get concerned about, it's really not that easy to go ahead and just start your own business. You need capital, you need systems, you need like, there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, you guys understand. So the way I view it is, look, we're going to do the best that we can as an organization. We're going to try to treat our people as good as we can. You know, we're going to try to give them every tool to be successful, you know, from a leadership development and a personal and professional development standpoint, as well as just like a day-to-day job perspective standpoint. So, you know, if they want to leave and go after it, so be it. But we feel that, you know, at the end of the day, you know, our brand is reflective of our people. And so we're all trying to build this massive thing. So we want, you know, good people that want to be here to be a part of it. And so, you know, if you don't want to be a part of it, all good. We'll see you later.
I think it's interesting too, because I mean, you talked about it earlier, but you're not only not have a non-compete, non-solicit, but you're also hiring a lot of people without logistics experience. So sometimes you hear the argument, you know, well, I need to have a non-compete, or, you know, because I'm training all these people without, you know, experience. But it sounds like you having no non-compete or no non-solicit, I mean, you're still hiring people, a lot of people without logistics experience.
Yeah, we are. And to me, that comes down to just one of the things we focused on in the last, well, we have been focused on it for a while, but definitely over the last year and a half has been training and development. And so, you know, we have a pretty good, I think it could always be better, right? But I think we have a pretty good training and development program. And so again, you know, if you give people the right opportunity with the right upward mobility, why not?
Is that, you don't have to say exact numbers, but I would imagine your retention rate is, just from looking around at some of your employees. I was curious before the show, and I saw 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 2 years. I mean, everyone I was clicking on, just out of curiosity, I imagine you guys have a pretty, I don't know if you know the exact number or are even able to share, but I imagine it's pretty high.
Yeah, it is high. I don't definitively know. I mean, I can tell you last year of the 20 something people we hired, you know, 2, I believe, aren't with us. So, you know, 18 out of 20 is a pretty good ratio in my mind.
Especially in sales. I mean, sometimes, you know, if you're hiring sales reps, there's nothing, you know, you can do. Some people just aren't cut out to it. I mean, that's probably, even for good organizations with like good culture, I would think they're not keeping 18 out of 20 just because of the nature of hiring sales reps.
Yeah. I mean, you're spot on. I'll be honest, when we first started, we said, okay, if we can hit 50% on sales hits, that's probably better than like most of the industry, because it seems to be like 1 in 3. And our most recent class, you know, so far everybody's here. We're really excited about what they've been doing over the last, you know, few months and what's coming down the pipeline with RFPs won and all that good jazz. So we're excited about it, but I think we've found I don't want to jinx myself here, but I think we've got a pretty good idea of what we do. In terms of hiring, though, we use Culture Index. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's similar to like a Myers-Briggs. So we use Culture Index and also Colby. We combine those two things, as well as obviously getting our JD really dialed in, and in expectations. You know, we were very clear out of the gate of what expectations are, and we also, you know, request that anybody coming on board, they give us their expectations too. And then this way, it's very clear. There's no shocks when you walk in the door at AGL. It's like, no, this is what we've put out here. You know, this is the direction we're going as a group. This is the direction that your department's going. Let's do it.
I love that you talk about getting their expectations. It seems oftentimes employers, they might say, you know, like hit X target, but then you know, the employee doesn't have what they need to get it. So like the expectation of you as an employer to give them the tools and the training or the resources to be successful. So I like that you kind of have that two-way communication going, as opposed to just your expectations, but, you know, having that communication.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it's definitely important. You know, the old saying is, what, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We run our business on EOS, so Gino Wickman's entrepreneurial operating system. I don't know if you guys are very familiar with it, but basically I call it a people operating system. So like everybody has their TMS, their CRM. This is for the entire organization, you know, to be on the same page. So everybody knows exactly what our goals are all the way up through 2030, what we expect every division to do, how many people need to be hired every single year, what budgets are going to be. So like there is no question organizationally what we're doing in terms of development, growth, and hiring. And then along with that comes some of our strategic initiatives that we're going to be doing along the way. So the path is laid out. It's very clear, which definitely, I think that helps a lot too with retention and getting people on the same page.
Yeah, 100%.
You mentioned training too a couple times there, which I think is a hot topic. You hear a lot of people talking about training in the industry, and you just said 18 out of 20, made it the new hires. What kind of, you don't have to share all your secrets or share what you feel comfortable sharing, but what kind of goes into training for a new hire, for you guys, or how do you guys develop your training process? Or maybe just touch on that in general.
Yeah, for sure. So, you start day one with AGL. It's going to be your typical meet with HR, get onboarded. Let's talk about the generic, organization. And then from there, over the next 2 weeks, you're not doing anything aside from meeting with different managers in each department and learning about what they do and what we do. And so everybody on our domestic team at some point meets with everybody on the import and export teams. So there's cross functionality there and vice versa. And then once that happens, we basically in that second week, depending on what the role is, right? Because I have to speak in general terms. I'm not speaking about a specific role, but we basically will do some form of shadowing right out of the gate, and then there's a bunch of different role playing over the next couple of weeks. And so we could talk about role playing forever and all the different situations that pop up. But it's really not till about week 3 or 4 where anybody's actually sitting there at their desk on their own.
I imagine it's different too on the international domestic side. And like you said, every role is different. You're training. Would you say, I guess one thing we haven't asked, I'm kind of curious, your thoughts. Is it easier, do you think, to land customers for new reps on the international side or on the domestic side in today's market? Which one is
I think it's easier to land customers on the domestic side. The asterisk is I don't think they're the right customers when you land them that easy, usually. It's just a totally different sell. So like to me, the international side, it's a little bit more cyclical depending on the commodity that we're going in. There's certain verticals obviously within the domestic space that are cyclical as well. But I would say it's really a toss-up. It's really a toss-up, and I'm sorry to give you that as an answer.
Oh, it's a good.
Yeah.
How about one thing I'm curious too is that I don't know much about, but I had a conversation with somebody who was about 6 months ago. They were telling me how someone at a big 3PL made a massive mistake on the international side that cost a couple $100,000 and ended up getting fired. And I felt totally bad for the person they were telling me about, and I didn't exactly understand the situation of what they did. Something about like a time period, I think. Like I said, the international is a foreign language to me, but the cost of mistakes, like just implement like how training is even more important on the international side, or how is it possible to have these massive mistakes, or how do you avoid? I mean, I'm sure way more about it. I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on that topic.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you a real example of something that happened. It wasn't even one of my team members' fault. It wasn't the client's fault either. But before I give that example, you're spot on. In the international training side, it's months before you'll even actually directly work with an account. Months. So we had one situation in 2021 where the U.S. was exporting a lot of southern yellow pine logs into China, and they had changed the regulations while we had 7 containers on the water in regards to what that requirement looks like at destination, so in China. So we could not get them cleared, but we couldn't get them moved. And then our client went dark on us and just ceased all communication. We got an invoice for $500,000 from our steamship line partner for demurrage, detention and demurrage overseas. And so, yeah, exactly. You're just batting your eyes, and I totally agree. And so I just got that invoice resolved in 2024, literally after negotiating 3 years with the steamship line. No fault of my client of ours, and technically no fault of my clients, just a regulatory change while the containers were on the water.
Did you when you say you got it resolved, did you get it discounted, or did you guys end up paying it out full, or what happened?
No, we cut a deal with them, so we ended up paying 20% of it, but we had to guarantee certain volumes on the back end.
Yeah.
I mean, I was happy to get the discount, but still, that's a big lump sum for something nobody did wrong.
Yeah, better than 100%, but still sucks.
Totally.
I guess kidding on that topic too. I think some people on the domestic side don't realize this, but I saw this briefly on the shipper side too. There's a lot of disputes between steamship lines and shippers, forwarders. Sometimes they just put bills, and then you have to, I feel like the auditing process, just briefly from what I saw, I was like I said, a very brief period of time. The auditing process must be so much more important for like these demerge, all these charges. Is that a pretty important position inside like an international, company, whoever's doing that?
It is. Yeah. I was in New York City Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this week, meeting with some of our steamship line partners. And the word disputes came up every single meeting for that reason. Contracts, they change all the time. It's not the same as in the domestic space. And then charges get added, tariffs are there. And so you'll get invoices. I think we were just running numbers the other day. It's like 45% of our invoices come across incorrectly from our partners, which is a really, when you're doing 25 to 3,000 loads a month, that's a lot.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
That's nuts.
And then so we have to go through every single one and submit documentation showing that this actually isn't correct. And a lot of times they have an automated system or they have somebody overseas and they're operating in this, very black and white scenario, and they just say, oh no, it's right. So then it has to get escalated, and then it has to get negotiated or waived. It's a really laborious process. So it's very important we have somebody that's extremely diligent and good on that side.
I was gonna say, if you don't, that could literally cost tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. That's what the wild part to the international side is, for sure. Well, I know Will's got a hard cutoff, but are there any other kind of points? I know we've touched on so many things from leadership. Any other things you want to touch on? I know you mentioned charity at the beginning is a big part to you. Maybe that'd be kind of a good, ending point, as I know that's, really important to your guys' organization.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that we want to do is we want to grow to 200,000 loads a year by 2030. So, we're planning on trying to 5X the business in the next 5 years. And a big part of that is for every dollar that we donate, as you had mentioned, Will, every load that we move, we donate $1. And our organization chooses the charity. So we put it out. Everybody lists charities that they care about, and then we vote individually as an organization anonymously. And whoever wins is where the money goes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so it puts it in the hands of the team. It's not like I'm sitting here directing where it goes. I don't really believe in that micromanaging on almost any level, that included. And so our goal is to get to $1 million donated. I think right now I think over the last 4 or 5 years, somewhere in like the mid hundreds or low hundreds, which is good, but we want to get to that, $1 million mark. So I'm excited about that as being one of the things we'll be able to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really like how you let the organization vote anonymously. We're to direct the funds. We'll definitely be rooting for you guys and tuned in on the journey, and we'll be rooting for the 5X and or 5X and whatever it was, the massive growth that you're aiming for.
Yeah, that's the goal. Even if we fall a little bit short, it's still really impressive and really fun. So I appreciate you guys having me on here today.
Yeah, it was great. We'll have to do it again, and have a great weekend. And yeah, thanks again. That was fun. It was a fun conversation. It flew by. So
yeah, it did. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Steve. That was fun. That was one of my favorite episodes. He's just, even talking to him, I mean, it was kind of just reconfirmed kind of that's a business I root for hard. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, no, 100%. I don't know much about the international, but yeah, I mean, that's crazy. 45% of their invoices that they're getting invoiced wrong. It's like LTL on steroids. I prefer the domestic truckload, just all in rates, 1-on-1. It's very straightforward. It seems that's a lot. But yeah, no, it seems like a great guy, fantastic organization. And yeah, I really like what they're doing with the dollar load. So great guy.
100%. Well, shout out to our sponsors again. Multi-service fuel card, been around since 1978. If you're any in the cities, they're sponsoring the freight movement tour. So check them out. Your broker, carrier, great discounts, great company. Black Box, Will works, HG Ships, where I recruit agents for. Sales Dash, freight specific CRM. Josh is great. Hit him up. Load-based tracking solution, fantastic. Loadbase.com. Hit up Stan. Will demoed them recently. Loved it. And Taft's our banner sponsor, top 10 factoring company, Kansas City based. Hit up Ryan, Rob. They're responsive, customer service until 12, which is rare for a factoring company. And we'll be back. We'll be back next week.
All right. Well, that'll do it for this week. Yeah, stay tuned to the page for next week's episode and Dog of the Week.
Sounds good. All right. See you next week.
All right. See ya.